Robin Hood Radio presents Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens. Michele is a longtime journalist and herself is a published playwright of several theatrical works. She's a frequent contributor to the Huffington Post, Daily Beast, and the Atlantic websites.
Well, we are in a new month with very little news in the world right now. Kidding. In fact, even in the theater world, there are continuing updates, admirable creativity, and hope for a time when people are inside, unmasked, and watching live theater. I know, a pipe dream, as an Arthur Miller character might say. Each week, though, more companies, large and small, announce what they will offer as a virtual season. Ars Nova became the latest. You have a few more weeks to sign up for one experience there called PS, which seems to include real letters, an immersive component, and only limited number of people allowed in. Well, that should be enough of a tease. Most companies continue to address the race issue in some way. Even the Mint Company, which offers long-forgotten plays, well, they may not be presenting any virtually, but it has been putting out a newsletter telling stories of long-forgotten theater figures. You can now read about one William Alexander Brown, arguably America's first black playwright. If there has been a third issue impacting theater, along with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, it is the amendment that gave women, certain women, the right to vote. On that score, I watched parts of a second-in-process musical this past week called Jeanette. It's about Jeanette Rankin, a Republican from Montana, who was the first woman elected to Congress in 1916. The creators spoke about the project, and several of the songs were performed. It was a lot like one I saw a few months ago called Suffragist, which is further along as a show and deals with the surprising diversity of those who fought valiantly for our rights. As for other streamings of this past week, I viewed Jack Was Kind, a one-woman monologue presented by the Solo Theater and written and performed by Tracy Thorn. There's a mystery here, and we are on the edge of our seats. Well, they hope we are. Eventually, we realize we are watching a good wife, politically speaking, who is possibly the woman sitting behind Judge Kavanaugh. So it manages to be about regrets over having been complicit, and how you respond to a daughter who says, "Mom, you are so disappointing right now." Another one-woman piece, Eleanor, was put on by the Great Barrington Stage Company. And this is called a developmental reading, meaning it's still in process, but it's pretty darn good as it is. Eleanor, superbly played by Harriet Harris, is here talking from her grave. And while some of the material is known, there are some very nice nuggets. "Father died when I was 10. He was the true love of my life," she says. "I had no mothering instinct," she admits, and she's embarrassed that their 5 children had 19 marriages between them. We hear of all the things she pleaded with her husband not to do, those shameful Japanese internment camps, for example. Clearly, there is a winking attempt here to make this piece resonate. How can we have freedom of the press if we divide it in two, she asks. In Washington, honesty is an Achilles heel. But still, Eleanor seems a piece worth developing further. I also watched yet another theater of war presentation, Antigone in Ferguson, employing, as always, Sophocles' actual words, but this time mixed with a large group in their own Zoom squares, performing as a gospel choir. Clearly the subject here was which lives matter. "I'm out of breath, not from running, but from fear," says one character. "You must be guilty of something," she is told. Now remember, this is Sophocles. The longest show I streamed, more than 2.5 hours, though there was a tech timeout, was amazingly very entertaining. Charles Busch stars in and wrote the primary stages play called Tribute Artist. That's what the cross-dressing main character prefers to call himself. "Is it really a crime to impersonate a dead person?" he asks. Well, that makes sense because his comedy is also a murder mystery and a New York real estate caper. 6 truly outstanding actors take us through a very funny journey. Too long, but some memorable lines here too, including, "The more honest you are, the more people believe you." It's spoken with a sense of surprise. The last thing I should mention was another New York Times offstage hour, this one titled Why I Miss Broadway. The first half was the Times theater reporter Michael Paulson interviewing Hillary Clinton. It turns out she had seen some 40 shows in the previous year, and she knows her stuff. She loved Hadestown, Tina, Fiddler in Yiddish, and Bette Midler as Dolly. Her first theater experience as a young woman was Hair. It was standing room only, she recalled, but they let us stand for the second half. She pointed out that New York's recovery is tied to the arts. She said it feeds the human spirit. She was followed by thoughts from big-name stage stars Audra McDonald, Jessie Mueller, Neil Patrick Harris, and Gabriel Brooks. A fun hour that you should be able to find. So, what's coming up this week? Tonight you might like what the Red Bull Podversation offers, the great actor Patrick Page reflecting on his past Shakespeare work and performing one of the great speeches from Othello. Tomorrow at 8, LA Theater Works presents a bevy of fine actors, including Matthew Rhys and Charlene Woodward, discussing former work for that necessary company. Same night, Tuesday at 8:30, the Vineyard Theater presents something called Lessons in Survival. Thursday at 6 p.m., the classic stage conversation of the week is with the artistic director of London's National Theatre. It's very timely as the National is going back up October 21st, so this should be interesting and even instructive. Same night at 8:30, a benefit of scene readings from Angels in America with Glenn Close as Roy Cohn, among other talents, including Jeremy O. Harris and Laura Linney. This is a benefit for AIDS causes. Manhattan Theater Club has what should be a lively conversation Friday at 2 o'clock with Harvey Fierstein and director Kimberly Senior. She's one of the few but increasing number of big-name female directors. Male or female, if you're interested in getting into the theater world, check out the Roundabout Company, which for a mere $125 is offering a highly instructive lab. You'll learn from directors, writers, and actors. Hey, by the time things get back to normal, you may have a play ready to go. Finally, one of the trends during this COVID-caused intermission is stage shows transferred to the screen. So it was just announced that a version of SpongeBob, the musical, is being filmed. Not so excited about that. And Netflix has now put up Boys in the Band, which I did tune into. I fully expected I'd be watching a taped performance of that revival, which won a Tony last season, but not quite. Same cast, same script, but it was directed by Joe Mantello as a movie. The actors are great, Jim Parsons, Zachary Quinto, Andrew Rannells, and more in major performances. But I just don't know if this totally works or if it's necessary as a period piece. There's lots of self-loathing, vitriol, jealousy, pills, a touch of nudity and alcohol, and supposedly wise observations like faggots are more worried than women about aging. Well, I don't know. We've come such a long way on the gay movement that I'm not sure how or who needs to be reminded. The Inheritance last season was supposed to be the last word on that history, and in fact, that didn't do very well. But mega producer Ryan Murphy is behind this latest incarnation, so we know he won't let the boys go quietly. So there you have, Jill, No Stage Left, episode 28.
Paying any attention to? I know you're listening, but what's going on in UK? Because they seem to have they seem to be pretty focused on bringing some patrons back into the joint. So
I agree. That's why I can't wait to listen to the guy from the National Theater, because that's the big news there, that they've somehow pulled it together. Now, in terms of they're putting up plays apparently, and we know we've talked about the ones that have been done. What do they call that? Live in camera at the theater they're trying to save, Old Vic. So they've been doing things. They've definitely been more experimental. I don't know what's happening in terms of how many people they're letting into the theater, who's wearing masks and who isn't, how far apart they're sitting. That I don't know.
Because there was a really interesting thing in the Times on the 30th of September.
Yeah.
Basically, and they cover some. These are live performances, and they covered some UK, but there's also some in Florida. And so there are different people doing different things, and it's just what comes through is how happy we are. As wonderful as virtual is, and it's like it's got its place. There is I'm hearing it obviously from other places. I think it's got a name now, Zoom fatigue. There is something about sitting in front, and you've certainly got this with kids who are, the kids who are distance learning that should be in school, better for them, they've got it. People who are homeschooling, that's completely different than, homeschooling voluntarily is completely different than, being forced into what is called distance learning.
Every kid that I've asked, how are you doing? They say they want to be back in class. They want to see their friends.
And every kid that is doing when I say every kid, younger kids, 7-year-old, 8, who are doing the hybrid models. They just, it's got the unintended consequence of anxiety because there's no, the routine, for a kid, Monday, Tuesday, at your friend's house or whatever in your pod, and Thursday, it's just destabilizing. But
when you walk by the schools, we have many of them in our neighborhood, and I always feel like crying a little bit. These little girls with their masks on, and their uniforms and their masks. It's unbelievable. I was somewhere the other night. Where was I? Yesterday I went to a book party in New Jersey. We were all outside, and everybody was in masks. And somebody said, "Wait. If this was a night, could we call this a masked ball?" Why don't we remember how they used to have those? And
absolutely, and some of them came out of the plague, by the way.
There you go. There you go. Truman Capote always had the black and white masked ball, I think, and who knows? But yes, I think people are. Listen, Great Barrington, they seem to be doing things. But again, I don't. The one I watched from Great Barrington was a live reading over Zoom. So I think they tried to do something outside there. As far as I know, in New York, it's just been that one, the Godspell. But maybe in the Berkshires they're starting. And
right, and that will be interesting, of course. I'm just, again, I'm still focused on. If I had the budget and I ruled the world, I would pack up my whatever and send it down to. I would start creating. More southern tier, so to speak, not southern tier of New York, but more southern tier of all right, how do we take advantage of the weather? And
that's right. We all knew theater would be last. I remember when I reported here about a thing that I'd gone to, listening to theater people, museum people, and I think it was dance. It was a guy from Harlem School of the Arts. And every one of them said museums would be first to open because it was more manageable. How many people you're allowed in? They could wear masks. What's the difference? And they all said theater would be last because you're asking so much of the artist and the audience. You're just asking a lot. Who feels safe? Actors have to kiss each other or sing to each other or spit at each other, while they enunciate. This is I got a couple more of these episodes, the No Stage Left episodes to go.
Oh, I'm sure.
Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens, produced in the studios of Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com.